Hello and welcome back, all you fabulous fighting fantasy aficionados, random passers-by, old friends and family, and whoever else might be watching. This is Hakon, and today I'm doing my last episode for now about this book. This is Caverns of the Snow Witch, fighting fantasy game book number 9, written by Ian Livingstone and published 1984. Now, this book has an interesting story to it, which, by that I don't mean the story in the book, but how it came about. And I think that actually has affected how it is structured in quite a few ways. It was originally written as a shorter game for Warlock magazine, which was a relatively short-lived magazine to do with fighting fantasy game books, which was published in the around that sort of same time, early 83, 84 period. It didn't last very long in Britain, where it was published, but there's a Japanese version apparently went on for a long time, becoming an independent magazine, as fighting fantasy game books were hugely popular in Japan. So it started as a smaller game, I think 150 paragraphs, I do believe, if I remember correctly, in the magazine. And then it was expanded into 400 paragraphs for the book version, which means that the first part of the story is a bit different. It's got very few. It's a very sort of narrow place. You really have to go one route to get to the things you need, and there are very few places, very few locations that you can get to where there aren't things you need. So basically, everything you find, every room, every location, that you have to really search everywhere and then find the things you need, and then you move on. Because when I was playing these the first few times, I did actually manage a few other times actually ending up not having the items I needed to move on further. And after that, that's the first part of the story, is getting to the Snow Witch and killing her, or you think you killed her. And then you move on, and then at some point you meet her again because her spirit is sort of captured in a kind of a sort of soul-keeping device, which you also have to defeat. And then you have to make your way back to, well, you actually at some point you get two travel companions, a dwarf and an elf. Excuse me. And you are sort of accompanying them to the dwarf to Stonebridge, and then you are supposed to accompany the elf as well to Moonstone Hills. He doesn't make it all the way, and you are in trouble of not making it either, because it's quite a clever thing actually that they've put into this book, which I think makes it more interesting. Towards the end of the book, you find out that you have been cursed earlier, very early on in the book, or earlier on in the book. And you actually end up with a limited amount of time to get to the healer who can help you get rid of the curse, and you have to actually go through a kind of ritual as well to get rid of the curse, because it's quite a complicated thing. It's a death curse. It's quite a strong magic. So there are some very nice ideas in this one that I haven't seen in others. No, but this is the aftermath episode. I'm not going to sort of review this book so much yet, because I've decided that after I've played a lot more of the books, maybe even all of the books, then I should go through all of them again and maybe rank them a bit and review them and say pros and cons for either one. And as you know, if you follow this channel, or if you're new to this channel and you just have a quick look, you'll see I haven't covered that many yet. I've done so far, and the one I started with, of course, was oh, sorry, didn't mean to bump into the microphone there. Return to Fighter Mountain. That's the first one I did. Then I followed it up with Freeway Fighter. and then I did Caverns of the Snow Witch. So those are the 3 I've done so far after I started doing these again. So I've still got a lot to go. So, right, so the main purpose of this episode is, this is going to be my typical Aftermath episode, where I say a little bit about the map, perhaps. Sometimes I would mention typos. There aren't really that many in this book. There are a few. And also I will have made a simulation in Basic that allows me to calculate the chances of winning if you know exactly where you're going. I could, of course, make it the chance of winning if you want to go the wrong path as well. In this case, because of the items you need, there are very few alternative paths that actually lead you to victory. There are a few places where you can actually go a roundabout way and still manage to survive. Although in all cases, your chances of survival will go down. So that's the way it is. So I'll be back in a few moments because I need to move my camera a little bit now to probably actually I don't. Yeah, I might have to refocus my camera a bit to show you, and also have to move my keyboard and my microphone. Sorry about that. I'll have to adjust the sound later. Now, I might have to do something here. Okay. Yes. So here we have the basic program on the left side here. Oh, let's see. Let's move that up a bit. The basic program on the left-hand side here, going through all the events of the correct path, which is a few battles, a few skill rolls, a few skill tests, a few luck tests. One thing I can say about this game is that if you take the wrong path, you end up testing your luck a lot more, actually. On the right-hand side here, we've got the map. And as you can see, it is fairly linear going down here. And there are a few alternate paths. An interesting thing here towards the end is actually you can take a shortcut, which brings you past a lot of obstacles. The thing is, of course, by this time you have started dying from the death curse. And if you go the longer way here, you can still make it, but it's harder, and you lose a lot more stamina from the curse than if you take the shortcut. Let's see, and then it's very linear at the end there. And then there's a little of a jumpy path there at the end there, because that's where you have something of silver, that means you can ride on the Pegasus to fight up mountain at the end, or you can have to go the other way. Now, just to show you the correct path, or the shortest, most efficient path, is now marked in yellow. As you can see, there are a few places where there are blank spots, and the reason being is that, of course, they are luck rolls that can go either way. They're skill tests that can go different ways, and some of them are actually nested skill and luck tests, which means you do one and then you have to do another. And there are indeed some in this game where you can actually end up in a loop that brings you just round and round to the same test again and again. And you can actually get stuck in it until you die. Let's see, there's one here where you can see there's an arrow going both ways between two locations. Another interesting thing, of course, is now I marked all the places where you have an insta-death. That is to say, you go to a paragraph and that's where you are told that the adventure is over. This usually is because of a failed skill test or a luck test, and sometimes it's just because you've made the wrong choice. And as you can see, there are 1, 2, yeah, they start from the top. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. So hang on. Yeah, well, I think there might be a false positive here as well. So yeah, about 26. I'm not sure. Is that a high number for an Ian Livingstone book? I'm not sure yet because I usually haven't looked into that when I've been looking at these things. Luck tests. There are quite a few scattered throughout. And if you do take the wrong path or the least optimum path, there are some luck rolls you have to make that actually might end you up with quite a low luck. I'm not sure if all of them actually show here now. They should do, but so if you take the right path, there are fewer luck tests, and you are more likely to get your luck back for when you really need it. And skill tests. Let's see. There's only one in the beginning here, and then there's a few more as the adventure progresses. And there's several of them right here at the end. This is where you do the ritual, which also is made easier if you have the right items from earlier on in the game. I don't know if there's anything else I wanted to show you. I could tell you just a little bit. This is my mapping tool here is Twine, which is a tool that is specifically made for writing or creating interactive fiction of some sort. And it actually makes an HTML web readable file so you can post it online. And it's very useful and very fast and efficient in mapping out the game books as well. So this is what I need. What I need. What I needed, actually, I was looking for some kind of thing like this when I was starting out doing my maps, because I did it by hand, which is a lot of work. And I tried different things, and this is the only thing I found that was faster than doing it by hand. Another great thing about it is that, of course, it sometimes when you go a roundabout way and you get to a location that you've got to somewhere else as well, of course the arrows are automatic and you can actually quite quickly identify where you're going. Not a big deal in this one, but when I did a Freeway Fighter, it's quite a convoluted map in Freeway Fighter, so quite useful to use something like this. My map for Freeway Fighter I accidentally deleted, so I'll have to do that again someday, but that's another story. I will make these maps available on my Patreon. I was meaning to, and I'm still meaning to, actually make proper maps, properly sort of drawn out on the computer and more elegantly structured. I'm still working on every now and again on my Return to Firetop Mountain map. But for now, I think I should just actually post these Twine files. Twine is free to use, so anyone can just download that and use it. And I'll put that on my Patreon later. Also, I might just put the basic file as well, because somebody might find that interesting. Now, so what I'm doing here is I'm starting out with actually choosing my skill, stamina, luck for the. Okay, I'll just show you now. I've made the since last time I did an Aftermath episode, I've actually found out how to make the writing much bigger so it shows much better on the video. And so I'll just do what I did when I was playing this game. I gave myself skill 12, stamina 24, and luck 12, which gives us a winning chance of 80%. That's quite high, actually, because as you may remember, if you've seen my previous ones, Firetop Mountain was 25%, I believe, roughly, and Freeway Fighter was about 66%. So at the moment, ranking the books that I've played by chances of winning if you know the right path, this is the best one so far. An interesting thing, in these early books, like Caverns of the Snow Witch, and also starting with Warlock of Firetop Mountain, one of the basic rules that Steve Jackson and Ian Livingstone came up with was the use of provisions, which means you have 10 provisions when you start out. Each of them, they give you 4 stamina back, and you can rest whenever you're not in combat. In Return to Firetop Mountain, the provisions have been scrapped. I actually prefer it without the provisions sometimes, because I know it sort of reduces the game aspect of it a little bit because you have to choose when to take your provisions. But on the other hand, it's easier for it to be well structured, I guess. In Freeway Fighter, they have provisions, except they don't call them provisions; they call them health pack or med packs, and they give you a bit of health back, exactly the same way that the provisions do in Caverns of the Snow Witch. Also, Caverns of the Snow Witch and indeed Freeway Fighter as well, they have things happening where you actually give away your provisions or you lose provisions that you don't actually get to use to regain stamina yourself. In Caverns of the Snow Witch, there is a point where when you have met your dwarf and elf friend, that you give them one provision each when you rest. And there's also a point where you get into a blizzard and you have to use 2 provisions and you don't get anything back from them. It's just enough for you to recover your strength after the blizzard. So there's that too. And I think that actually adds a little bit to the game. So I think that it can be a really good thing as well. But you do have to sort of figure out when to use them. And in my simulation, what I do is because I have a starting sort of provision count, which is 10, and then, oh, hang on, I just need to, close that window. Provision count, and since I've done the whole game, I know when I regain stamina in other ways. I've sort of put in every now and again where, like this line here, it says eat provisions if needed, and I just sort of give a sort of target value of how much reduced your stamina should be before you eat a provision. And then I go to an eating provisions subroutine, which makes you eat provisions until you get up to the target value. So that is something I think works. In this book, actually, there's quite an interesting thing I just noticed here, because it says here fight 2 opponents at the same time. Usually there aren't that many places where you fight 2 opponents at the same time. In this book, there are actually quite a few of them. Let's see if I can actually get that up here. Yeah. Okay, so now in yellow are the points on the map here where you're fighting a battle with 2 opponents at the same time. So there's 1 there, there's 2 down there. Maybe there are more. I'm not sure if are there only 3? Maybe there are only 3, but that still feels like a lot more than you usually would get. I'm not sure. I think there might be more, but I think there are more. But because I'm not sure if I've actually written the text in the correct way, and if I haven't, then it won't show up. So, and also potions is something that also wasn't really used in Return to Fire Top Mountain anymore. At the beginning of the early books, you get to choose between different potions, not in Freeway Fighter. You get to choose between a luck potion, a stamina potion, or a skill potion. And the skill completely regains your skill. Luck completely regains your luck and gives you an additional luck point on top of your initial score, which is the only thing that gives you a higher than initial score. And the stamina potion regains your entire stamina. Usually, if it's a battle-heavy scenario like this one, like some of the early ones, the potion you want to go for is stamina. And after doing my map and finding the optimum route through this game book, I also realized that stamina was the best way to go. To start with, it seemed like it may have been luck, because I was doing quite a few luck tests and it didn't go so well. My luck was down to sort of 6 from starting at 11, I think, the first or the second time I played it. And but of course, if you take the correct path in this one, you don't need so much luck. So that said, another interesting thing about this game book, by the way, and even though it looks very linear, and because of the way it's structured, it is actually not that easy to find the correct path. I mean, it's when you know the correct path, it's very easy to win the game. But there are quite a few places where you can go wrong. And if you then start over again from the beginning, it will take you quite a long time potentially to find the correct path through. So, yeah, it's a little bit easier if you do cheat a little bit and just see what would have happened if every now and again. And also, I was sort of puzzling a little bit over where the missing items were in one of my some of my first few playthroughs, because they were so essential, and I wasn't sure where to find them, some of them, until I had to go and look in and see, oh, I missed that one little spot there. I just forgot to check that thing. Right, so just running the simulation again just to show you. So so we know 12, 24, 12 is 80%. But what about a 12 skill, 14 stamina, and 7 luck, which so that means maximum skill, minimum stamina, and luck. And let's see how that goes. 8.27%. Actually, that's still playable. This is with a stamina potion still, by the way. I will not change. It makes it very complicated. I suppose I could have changed the potions to something else as well, just to check, but I think that is the optimum thing. So 12, 14, 12 gives us 16%. So it looks like stamina is actually quite important here as well. So because I did find myself using my stamina potion, I really needed it as well. And now I used all my provisions to get stamina back, and I used my stamina potion, and I still had to use it. And that was when I was playing with a 12, 24, 12. Right, so if you do something like 20, 12, it's already down to 62%. So you see stamina is actually very pivotal here, but skill is usually the one that makes the biggest difference. So now I've got skill 11. See, if you go skill down to 11, you're actually halving your chances of winning. Already down to 38%. And if you go down to 10, let's see what happens then. And you're down to 2.68% already. So obviously, if you want to play this game, you may want to cheat a little bit on your stats if your fun of playing the game is trying to find the right path through it and completing all the battles. You want to start with very high ratings. So obviously here you don't want anything less than 11 skill. Let's do something like 11, 20, 11. And you're down to 18%. Okay, so that's still doable. 11, 18, 10 maybe. Let's try that. Something that you might be quite likely to get even if you choose it randomly, and you're down to about 10%. And I think you shouldn't really go much lower than 10 if you want to have any hopes of managing to get through. So I think this is very interesting book. I mean, it's 80% chance of winning if you know exactly what you're doing and you have maximum stats, but that number goes down really fast. So I know some people say that this is one of the easiest books, but if you make your stats randomly, your chances of winning are actually quite slim. I think that in Freeway Fighter, if I remember correctly, the stats were much less. When you change the stats, apart from skill, skill was very important there too. But the other stats were not important. If you reduced if you had minimums on luck and stamina, you still would get through rather well, as long as you had maximum skill. So because there's so many battles in this one, stamina has become so much more important. There are also quite a few pivotal luck rolls. So it's I'm not sure I'd call it the best balanced in that sense, but it's certainly an interesting book to play. I really enjoyed playing this one, and one of the things I really enjoyed about it, I'm going to go on about this every time I bring out this book, because the artwork here is exquisite. Because it's so uniquely, it looks like wood prints rather than pen drawings, and it's just such amazing work that's gone into it. And it's even a job performed by two people that looks a little bit less like a wood print than the other ones. But it's just an amazing job that's gone into creating these works of art for this book. And Yeah, I think I missed some there. Really cleverly done. Very lovely art style. I probably should show you the dragon because I think that might be my favorite now if I can find it. Does anyone know what paragraph the dragon is on? No. And also I noticed in the monster manual of the Fighting Fantasy book system, Out of the Pit, a lot of the monsters there are from this book. I suppose some of them uniquely only appear in this book, but I did notice many of the drawings here. I'd recognized them when I got this book because so many of them I'd seen before in Out of the Pit. So, oh, what am I doing? I can search for the dragon in my map. And then zoom in. Let's see. Let's see. So we've got paragraph 223. There we have it. That is the dragon. Yeah, it's okay. Maybe I'm not sure. I like so many other pictures in here. I'm not sure if that is my favorite, but it certainly is one of the great ones there. And also like how they often make the part of the drawing stick out from the box around it. Makes it look very dynamic. Not in all of them, but yeah. Oh yeah, and of course the Yeti, which is the most menacing Yeti I have ever seen. So artwork wise, if just for the art, I'd buy this book actually. And this being an early book, Game Book 9, this is printed in a absolutely ridiculous number of copies, and you can get these quite cheaply. So I definitely recommend having it in your collection if you don't have it already. So I think that's it for the moment. I do believe that is all I wanted to say. I can't think of anything else now. Oh yes, typos. There is one occasion right early on when you're fighting the snow wolves where it says with stamina and skill, the stamina and skill columns for the two opponents have been titled wrongly, I do believe, because you always list skill first, stamina second, and then it says stamina and skill. It's easy to miss for a proofreader, but not for me. And I didn't actually miss it the first time I saw it. Oh. I don't know what happened there. My recording just stopped. Is that half an hour already? Anyway, so yeah, so stamina and skill have been swapped around for those two. There are a few other occasions that aren't technically typos, but it's sometimes there's the writing isn't quite edited properly, and it's something called, well, I'm not sure if that's the technical term, is text flow, but I call it text flow. For instance, when you make a reference to something like the caves, and you say the caves are large, and then the next line you would say they are big. Well, that's a terrible example, but you change to a pronoun, don't you, when you do the second sentence? But there are a few occasions where I think there's actually the caves, I think is one of them, and it's mentioned you get almost the caves 3 times in a row. Not very good text flow, and something that should have been picked out during editing. Another thing is, yes, there's one more thing. On a few occasions, the outcome actually depends not on a skill test or a luck test, but actually on whether your stamina is high enough still. So how much is your stamina is the question that you get asked, and if it's 10 or above or more than 10, then you go to this paragraph. If it's 10 or less, you go to that paragraph, because it means you are more exhausted and your constitution is lower, and you are more likely to be strongly affected by an explosion, for instance. And so if you go to the paragraph that's where you have 10 or lower, for instance, then it says lose 4 stamina. If you're still alive, go to paragraph this and that or the other. And then if you go to the one where it says that you're supposed to go to if your stamina is 11 or higher, it also says lose 4 stamina. If you are still alive, go to paragraph this, that, or the other, which is clearly a mistake of copy and paste, because if your stamina was 11 or above, and when you lose 4, you don't have to be asked whether you're alive or not yet, or anymore. You would actually just be told, you should really just be told, go to the next paragraph, because you are still alive and there's no way you could have died from it. And I think there are 3 or 4 occasions of that in the book. It's a minor thing and it doesn't really matter, but I suppose if you want to be nitpicky, and I do want to be nitpicky sometimes, it's not perfect. It could have been improved upon. And I think that, because I'm just seeing how long it takes me now to just read through the whole book and map it out. It takes me just a few hours. Well, I'm not sure exactly how long, actually. Several hours. Less than a day's work anyway. So if you have somebody proofreading this for less than a day, that would be enough to pick up on every single one of those mistakes. And also if there were other ones to do with continuity, or items that were wrongly labeled, or paragraphs that had the wrong paragraph reference in them, all those things could have been picked up within 1 day's work. So when you see stuff like in Return to Fight of Mountain, where you have a lot of errors, including a wrong paragraph number and some other things, it sort of feels a bit sloppy and a bit sort of rushed. Somebody has not, when they've been proofreading, they haven't been mapping it out properly, because you can't proofread a game book by reading every single paragraph and seeing if the language is correct, and even then there are mistakes. So you need to map it out, and you need to check out continuity, all those things. You have to do that when you proofread, and it does actually not take that long if most of it is correct. Of course, if there are many mistakes, then of course that's a problem. But this is also how you should work when you're writing the book. You should have the map, you should see what flows on from where, and you should work out those continuity issues. So yes, rant over. What I'm saying is it could have been done better, and there is room for improvement. And if I was rewriting Caverns of the Snow Witch today, I would correct it. If I was editing it, I would have made some changes, and the same with Return to Fight of Mountain and also Freeway Fighter. All 3 books I've looked at so far have had mistakes that should have been fixed, and are very easy to fix as well. So if I ever were to make my own game book, there would be no such mistakes in it. I can assure you of that. I just spend 1 day doing what I do with these books, and I would have everything sorted out if I had any doubts whatsoever, if there were any mistakes left. So, right. I don't know which one to play next, but I have been thinking that because I'm planning to go through every single one of the Fighting Fantasy game books, if I just jump around at random a lot, it's going to be a bit sort of, I'm going to wonder what to play next. And it's going to get a bit confusing, and I have to sometimes check which ones I've done at some point. So I think I may start at the beginning for my next one and do the absolute classic. The Warlock of Fire Top Mountain might be my next one. So it certainly is one I should revisit. I was meaning to do this after I did Return to Fire Top Mountain, because this is, of course, the one I played the most. How many years ago now? Oh dear, 30 years. 30 years ago, I played this quite a bit. I definitely read through the whole book a few times. I made a map and everything, which is lost in time. I'll make a new map. And so I would want to do this one again, and I would have quite a high nostalgia factor as well for me, and a lot of things I would recognize from playing it before. So I'll do this one, and then I'll do book number 2, etc. Probably. Yeah, I think I'll do them in order now, unless there's some very good reason why I shouldn't do that. I will do them in order. So until I get through All of them. I'm persistent. If anything, I'm persistent. I'm going to do all of them. So, yeah. I don't have anything else to say now. So, all I have to say in that case is thank you very much for watching. I'm sorry I've been rambling on a bit about things that are not necessary to say in this video, but I hope you've borne with me and had the patience to look at the video all this way through. So yes, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time with Warlock of Firetop Mountain. Well, that might not be my next video, but my next fighting fantasy video will be the Warlock of Firetop Mountain. So, goodbye for now, and have a lovely day. Bye-bye.